Story 1. I, nearly adult male, don't have a close relationship with my dad. I would go as far as saying he doesn't really even deserve to be called my dad. My bio dad, yes, he is biologically my father, but he was never a dad to me. When I was younger, he was always working on spending time with his buddies. He'd go on vacations with friends, but not with us. He wasn't even around for my birthdays. My mom got sick when I was 9 and my dad was all emotional about it when he found out. He wasn't around when she was diagnosed, so he was the last to find out. But he didn't change. He became distraught when she died a year later. He tried to fight over not taking her body, and then for 3 years he didn't take care of himself and lost his job and everything. His parents helped him pay bills and groceries while my maternal grandparents took care of me. He wasn't around, he wasn't a good dad. He mourned Mom and pleaded for forgiveness, but never took the time to be a better dad. He just regretted not treating my mom better. He slowly got his crap together, and 2 years ago he met Helena, and they got married a year ago. Helena has 2 kids, a female kindergartner and a male preschooler. They don't have dads in their lives, and my dad has stepped up to be a great dad to the 2 of them. He takes them to the park, buys them stuff, reads to them, and helps with their daughters' reading and stuff. All the kinds of things an actual parent would do. All the stuff he never did with me. When I saw him do that stuff with them, I decided that as soon as I was 18, I was out of here and would never look back. I don't care if he changes now. I won't ever be okay with him being a good dad to those kids who aren't his before he tries with me. The only reason he started reaching out is because Helena's daughter wanted me to be her brother and sought me out, so I avoid being around. The few times I was around, and she asked me to do something, I said no. She'd get upset. So Dad would try to invite me along, and when it didn't work, he suggested we have boys' nights with Helena's son. Then, 2 weeks ago, Dad and Helena told her kids to invite me to a sibling movie night, and when the kids were out of earshot, I told them they were not my siblings, and I was not theirs. A week ago, Dad tried to talk to me about how distant I am and how I refuse to interact. He told me I was being hard on him. I told him that he was never a good dad to me, and why would I give him an easy time? I said, why would I like seeing him be a dad to them when he never was to me? He tried to defend it, and I told him he wasn't even their real dad, but he was mine. Dad accused me of dumping on him. Then Helena interjected and told me I shouldn't dismiss her kids and my dad's relationship like that, and shouldn't be so hard on him over it. I told her none of this concerned her, and she needed to stay out of it. They told me I was being an idiot and shouldn't hate that Helena's kids have a dad, and I should be glad for them and shouldn't be so disrespectful. Am I the idiot for dumping on my dad and telling his wife none of this concerns her? Honey, tell Helena there are 3 places she can stay for free. Over there in her lane, out of your business. You are not the idiot. Your dad may have turned it around now, but it seems that he wasn't a good dad to you, and that's a hurt that goes way deep. It's totally understandable, and his wife shouldn't get involved. Exactly. Ask Helena why her kids' dads walked out on her. Why she is so comfortable allowing a man who opted out of parenting his own kid to play house with hers, and what she's gonna do when he gets bored and treats her like he treated your mom. She wants to get into your business and get into hers. Ask your dad why he's better at raising another man's kids than his own. I would wipe the floor with them as I did with my own donor. If you can go back to your maternal grandparents, you will be able to get him out of your life, as you say, and go no contact to dating. I wish you all the very best. The only thing I would gently ask you to consider is, if you need help to work through this at any point, consider getting therapeutic support. What happened isn't your fault. Just don't let unhappiness and bitterness overshadow your future. You didn't deserve what happened, but you don't deserve the bitterness either. Take care. My husband, our teen son, and I are going to visit our daughter at her college next month, which is a few states away. She's a freshman and has been with her boyfriend Steve for 3 years. Steve is a great kid, but since money is a bit tighter in his family, he's doing 2 years at junior college while working to save up for the school my daughter attends. We've never taken him on a trip, But since he says money is tight, we decided to bring him with us on our visit to see our daughter. He visited her once on his own back in the fall, but due to his finances, he wouldn't be able to afford another trip this school year. He was over the moon when we invited him. We don't want him to pay for a single thing. His flight, his hotel room, he'll be sharing with our son, they get along well, and his food and drink will all be paid for by us. And we're glad to do it. We've also never really had a disagreement with Steve until now. When speaking to my daughter about plans, the hotel came up. This is when I found out that my daughter's dorm roommate was out of town that weekend, and she plans to have Steve stay in her dorm with her while we visit. I told her no. I said that what they do when we aren't there is their business. But since we're going to be there and funding this whole trip, he will be staying at the hotel. Call my husband and I old school or traditionalists, but we are Christians and the idea of them staying together on our visit makes us uncomfortable. We think we're being rather generous to take him in the first place. The word got back to Steve and he called me and asked why he couldn't stay with our daughter. I explained my reasons above and he got irate. He tried to pull the adult card. I said, Steve, here is the deal. If you want to stay with her, that's fine. You will still be welcome to tag along with our family. But there will be separate checks on every meal. And he could figure out his way there. He said we know he can't afford that. And I said all we ask is that you sleep at the hotel. He agreed, but now my daughter is saying we embarrassed him, and he's thinking of not coming. Lady, you are the idiot. This is totally strange. So it's okay as long as you don't know about it. And what is the problem with Steve being at the dorm since you're staying at the hotel? I don't get it. This sounds totally controlling for absolutely no reason. If they're going to have intimacy, they will do so regardless of whether you force this or not. So it serves absolutely no purpose other than to control and alienate your daughter. You can of course call the shots because it's your money, but all your daughter will take away is when her parents are doing something nice. It comes with strings attached that are controlling her life. I disagree. Op's not the idiot. Op is basically saying, I'm not funding this trip for you to go have intimacy with my daughter. You can do that on your own dime. She feels that she would be facilitating this, and it makes her uncomfortable. She's uncomfortable that her daughter is having intimacy, but they realize there's nothing they can do about it, except this one time when they're funding the trip. You're kidding, right? Either the daughter is sleeping with her boyfriend because she doesn't share Op's religious views, or she shares Op's religious views and won't actually have intimacy, just cuddle or something. In the second scenario, Opie has nothing to worry about and should let go. In the first scenario, Opie has already lost the battle and should worry more about not alienating her daughter by imposing her own will, i.e., she should let go. Also, Opie has known Steve for 3 years. 3? That's a lot for a person so young. I literally laughed at that last bit, because my very Christian parents refused to let my boyfriend of 7 years into their house until 2 months before we got married. I had a falling out with my parents at age 16. I moved out with my then boyfriend, and my dad begged me to come home. When I walked through the door to discuss it, my mother wanted me to sign a contract to stay in their house. Among some of the rules was my not dating until I was out of their house. I wish I could say I laughed myself out the door, but the truth was, I was desperate. Living with my then boyfriend put me in a vulnerable position that I didn't like. I just learned to lie better. OP, you are the idiot for using your money to force your own morals on them. You act like you're doing a nice thing by letting him come with you, basically giving him a gift, but gifts don't come with strings attached. I'm male 40, have a son, teen male, with my late wife Cassie. Cassie died when our son was 5. She was given a large sum of money before her death because her death could have been preventable, but her medical team was negligent. She used the money to clear any medical debts and pay for her funeral, and the rest went into a savings account for our son. I've saved since, but not as significantly as the money already there from Cassie. I remarried when my son was 11. My current wife, Andy, has a daughter who's now a tween. Before we ever got married, we'd discuss finances, the kids, and how our blended family would work. We spoke about savings for our kids. My stepdaughter has hardly any because her father cleared it out during his and Andy's marriage and refused to contribute to it again, so she started a new one. Andy was aware my son had a lot of money in his, but she doesn't have access to his, and I don't have access to my stepdaughters. We thought it was better to keep saving individually for our bio kid, and we agreed not to interfere, but everything else is together, so paying for medical stuff, household stuff, extracurricular stuff, etc. Everything with that was fine until September. The brief description is my stepdaughter was born with some medical problems. These problems required daily meds and surgery on occasion. In September, my stepdaughter had surgery that went badly and created more problems. Andy found my stepdaughter a new doctor. This new doctor discovered a further complication which required a new and costly medication in the short term and extensive surgery to correct. The surgery cost a lot, but we would pay it off eventually. This was when Andy suggested asking my son if we could pay the cost directly from his savings. I told her no. She told me if I explained that it needed to happen, and he would still have plenty, it wouldn't be an issue. I told her it would be, and that money was for my son, not for us, not for anyone but him. Andy went and asked my son anyway without letting me know. He told her no, and she raged at me, which is how I found out. I told her she crossed the line. She told me it's easy for me to say when my son isn't the one living with medical problems. I told her that I didn't give her the right to ask my son, who is still a child, for money. Things got so heated that my son and I moved out because Andy and I did nothing but fight, and she then went on to say some crazy stuff like my son hates her daughter and wants her to die. Andy's parents have interjected now and called me out for refusing to alleviate the stress of medical bills for Andy and my stepdaughter by taking the money I did have access to. Andy also said I showed how little I care for my stepdaughter. I told her we were still going to pay it, so I don't know what she's talking about. But she and her parents called me an idiot. I'm still furious she went to my son and asked for money after I said no. Am I the idiot though? Not the idiot. This is your son's money. She has no right to use it. And yes, she crossed the line. A big one. And even more for saying your son doesn't care about his stepsister. This money is from his late mother. Andy should go after her daughter's bio dad and call him selfish for not paying. Maybe even take him to court for this, as he should pay child support and so on. Either she apologizes to you and your son for crossing this line, or you are done. Yes, how dare she try and emotionally manipulate a motherless child for money, instead of her daughter living with another parent. She's just trying to take the seemingly easy route instead of advocating for her daughter through proper channels. Lord. Of course it's easier for her to harass a child instead of taking bio dad to court. She's fixated on this money because she knows that this won't be the last big medical bill for you guys to pay off. You said, I told her we're going to pay the bill anyways, basically saying that you don't see why she wants the money so bad, when the bill will be paid eventually. It's because she won't replace the money in the account. Nowhere did you say, we'll pay it back to the account. She said, he'll have plenty left. Why can't we use it? She's sick of paying these medical bills. Totally understandable. She wants a free handout that isn't hers to accept or request. She could try suing her ex for child support, or the doctor for malpractice, or even negotiating it down with the hospital. I guess it's time for the grandparents to empty some savings, or do they not love their granddaughter? But she didn't even bother exhausting any of those avenues. I hope you have that money legally protected somehow from a divorce or theft. A divorce can't include an inheritance, I think. But with your late wife giving the money before she passed, it might be a different rule. I, 26 female, haven't been in a romantic relationship for years, since my last one ended. Finding a partner isn't much of a concern for me, and I enjoy being on my own. But the rest of my family thinks otherwise, especially my brother-in-law, who has taken it upon himself to set me up. He's the kind of person who believes that marriage should be above anything else in life, and I'm wasting mine away. He's tried to introduce me to multiple people, some I've entertained while others I've politely refused to meet. Those whom I've met were decent people, and they've taken the rejection well. The only issue here is that I don't want to be with someone, but brother-in-law doesn't find my reason genuine enough. He's still on the "you haven't met the right one" tick. The routine blind date happened again, only this time I wasn't told that it was one. As frustrating as my brother-in-law's matchmaking hobby can be, he does usually ask for my consent, or at least tell me, "Surprise, you're going on a date." But this was different. They invited us, both sides of the family, to dinner, and it wasn't a formal family-only occasion, so when he introduced his friend, I didn't think much of it. He seemed like a cool guy, and it was fun meeting him. Then I noticed that his conversations with me were getting a bit too personal, and I had a mild suspicion that I might be on a date, but I wasn't sure of it. Until well into the night, the guy mentions how he also prefers to develop friendships with someone before making a romantic commitment. Also, further into the conversation, I learned that I'm being tricked into forming a friendship that will eventually turn into a romantic one. My brother-in-law planned to get me to test the water. I told him that it was such a weird thing for him to do, and I called him bizarre for it. That ended our conversation and the night. I confronted my sister and brother-in-law, and while my sister had no idea about what had happened, brother-in-law thought that I should have just given him a chance, and we did get along, so I shouldn't make a big deal out of it. It doesn't end here. The friend is angry at brother-in-law because of that horrible date, and now my brother-in-law wants an apology for insulting his good intentions and also for name-calling his friend. Not the idiot, good Lord. I hate people like your brother-in-law. He is not your matchmaker, and you have every right to live your life how you want as long as you're not directly hurting anyone. Your brother-in-law and family are the ones causing trouble by trying to force this on you. You haven't met the right one yet, and that's okay. But now, every time your family introduces you to anyone, you're going to have your guard up because of their past actions automatically. I hope they can take some time to reflect on why it's so hard for them. Brother-in-law's coming across as borderline obsessed with Opie's love life and creepy as heck. Oh, and if he has a crush on Opie, maybe he wants to get her a boyfriend because he hopes that his fantasies will stop and that he could have her. I find it weird when a married man is so possessed by another woman. Or he may feel threatened by an independent woman who doesn't need a man in her life. Opie brother-in-law needs to keep his nose out of your business. Matchmaking is bad enough. Ambush matchmaking is just unacceptable. No, you don't owe it to your brother-in-law or the other guy to give him a chance or anything else. Because now, you have to wonder if you're going to be surprised by a setup at any time. And you should not have to live your life with that kind of paranoia. And your brother-in-law needs to get over this misogynistic idea that the highest ambition a woman should have is to have a man in her life. Thanks for listening.